On February 15th, a group of students organized an off-campus party which claimed to be in celebration of Black History Month. The invitation announced the Compton Cookout, which invited students to perform and therefore perpetuate negative stereotypes associated with African American culture. This incident exposed the state of race relations at UCSD. Despite all of the pain being inflicted on this group of fellow students, a recent poll released in The Guardian indicated that 59% of those who participated do not feel that racism is a problem on campus. What is the cause of this ignorance? First, we have to look into the socioeconomic and racial makeup of the student body. The vast majority of students who are accepted at UCSD come from upper middle class neighborhoods in which they are not exposed to the racial, economic, social, and historical realities minorities still face to this day.
So Dr. Irwina Welch at the reteach, which was in response to the teach-in last week, said something really profound, which was that if you don't think that this is a big deal, I encourage you to examine the subjectivity and the social privilege that you inhabit that allows you the distance from this reality that allows you then to find it funny or comical, right?
You know, I honestly don't think of these racist expressions, the really blatant racist expressions, as the big problem in themselves. They've caused a lot of hurt, but I think honestly the number of students who would express those things is pretty small at UCSD. But there are bigger problems that lie behind them, some of which have to do with just you know, insensitivity and not being aware of the, you know, the implications of this kind of humor and so on. And also just the structural fact of the lack of diversity at UCSD. And this has been an issue for a long time. And the fact that we're talking about it again, well, that's a good thing.
There's the talking down of issues, I think, is also related to naivety. I think that most people who do that aren't really trying to be disrespectful or offensive or anything like that. I think they honestly don't get it. And that's why I think it's important for the institution to offer opportunities for students to learn how to get it. Particularly for students in departments like communication have that opportunity. We talk these issues up a lot, and I think students do start to get it. Students maybe in other departments don't have that opportunity, so we need to figure out ways to make sure that the community at large learns how to understand why these things are important. I feel like a lot of students here, they see, you know, a handful of students who are angry and protesting and who are clearly upset, and the students who are observing this go, well, I'm not upset, so there must not be any reason to be upset. And then when the students explain why they're upset, they go, well, I don't know anything about that, and since I don't know about it, there's no reason to be upset, and since I don't have a reason to be upset, you don't have a reason to be upset. And there's a clearly obvious logical problem in there that I think the students are blind to. Well, not just students, adults do this too. But I think that when people talk the issues down, they're just sort of blind to that logical error that says, I don't know about it, so therefore it's not important, and therefore you shouldn't be upset about it. There's a major disconnect there that people are just sort of blind to. And so I try to make people aware of that disconnect. And I find that when I do that, they tend to do the rest of the work for themselves. Because again, I believe people really don't want to go around saying and doing things that are hurtful to other people. I think that sometimes they just don't realize they're doing it.
It's one thing to have these discussions within UCSD. However, we must take into account how the media is depicting our university. So what's at stake? What are the possible repercussions of this representation?
Institutional racism,
racial undercurrent,
racial
at the
tensions
University
flared
of
up
California
of Ku Klux Klan-like intention
are downright racist.
Yeah, I worry that these incidents, the portrayal of these incidents in the media is going to make the problem even worse by just creating a perception that UCSD is not a hospitable place for minority students. I'm hoping that some of the things that students do in response to it will change that, you know, so that minority students will look and see, well, there's a lot of activism at UCSD, right? And so maybe there's some, you know, maybe there's some hope and some activity here, but I certainly am worried about it. I mean, I think the reputation of the university has taken a big hit. There's no question about that.
When something like the Compton Cookout or the Noose or the KKK Hood, when those things happen, they're going to make it to the press. And that's going to go out, and that's what people outside of the community are going to think about the institution. And so, in response to that, we've got a couple of choices to what we can do. We can, support those messages, which the institution wouldn't do that. Another thing we can do is remain silent. The problem with that approach is that creates a situation where that sort of racist voice from UCSD becomes the only voice. And so if we don't respond sort of in an appropriate way to when those things happen, what happens is that the world outside of UCSD only ever hears that those racist incidents occurred. And so that becomes the reputation of the university. Even though most people here don't agree with that message. If we don't actually stand up and say anything, if we don't do things in front of the press, if we don't let the press know that we feel otherwise, then that racist voice is the only voice of the community. And so then our other option is then, of course, to speak up.
While we do not have the power to change the events of the past, it is our responsibility to strive for an institution characterized by tolerance and equality. But how?
And the most important thing that needs to be done on this campus in order for these changes to take place is educate the great majority of the students who are completely ignorant about the history of this nation and how these moments appear. They are not events coming out of thin air. They are very deeply rooted in history, and I think that students should be educated.
There needs to be recruitment of more faculty of color too, right? We need a more diverse faculty. That is really, really, really important, because students need people who they feel can identify with their experience, as a person of color, etc.
Whether or not it's the individual's responsibility or the school's responsibility, yes, it's both of them, because part of being a U.S. citizen as well as part of being a citizen of this country, a citizen of this world, and I guess a student of UCSD is being respectful of other people. And so no matter the ethnicity, I think being respectful is very crucial. Now, as a school, since this school caters to everyone based on their policy, it's also the school's responsibility to ensure that such actions do not occur. Now, if they do occur, I don't think the school should be 100% blamed, because the school should use it as a way to actually teach, not as a way to pass blame, because passing blame doesn't really help people. It just expatiates the problem even more.
And you can get involved yourself in various forms of activism, right, that try and push forward this issue. It certainly shouldn't be just the minority students who are the activists on this kind of issue. Diversity affects us all, and we can all get involved in it.